Hey everyone, and welcome to a new episode of The Big Dream. I'm your host, Victor Battis, and today I have the honor of welcoming Sunil. He's the CEO and co-founder of TrainYo, and we're here to hear his story about chasing the American dream, but really the worldwide dream. Hi, Sunil. Let's do it.
So I moved from England and I moved to Colombia. So the reason why I decided to relocate is for multiple reasons. I was a weird kid and I grew up watching like nature documentaries, and I wanted to be around the lizards, the snakes, and the animals. We are always, from the start, we've been interested in the dream of challenging education, universities, and the way people educate themselves and get entry level or transitional roles. And we believe fundamentally that universities are flawed globally. But we, started in the UK and we launched in September last year. And by April, we had launched in America. And a lot of people, I'd probably say half of the market were like, that seems like it's a bit too soon. And the other half are like, you can't go fast enough. I think we did the right thing. We established ourselves in America within the first 6 months of starting a business, and we've certainly seen the benefit from it. For us, the American SaaS market is probably larger than the rest of the world combined, especially on enterprise. And we just see that as the next hurdle for us. I don't feel like we're there yet. I think the economy and what's going on has kind of reduced that impact in the short term, but we've grown our brand to be the largest on LinkedIn in terms of any other boot camp, and we are placing candidates regularly every month in America with some amazing companies. So quite happy about that. It's a tricky one because we were quite lucky. We got to know people through a network. A lot of our investors were, we raised a round in public. So we had over 30 angel investors spread across the world who were in our industry, right? Who became customers later after they invested. So we really worked through the industry in a way that everyone knows everyone talks to each other. So let's just be friendly, let's be fun, let's talk about our mission, let's evangelize it, let's get other people to evangelize it for us. And that really worked. So we haven't really had challenges in terms of culture, those kinds of challenges. It's been more a case of, I would say we've been pretty fortunate with our challenges so far, but I think getting the right people in seat is something that it will always be a challenge. And as a startup, and as it grows so fast, that's something you're constantly working on, right? And I think lastly would be the logistics of getting the product and making sure there's quality in, quality out, and not scaling that too quickly. Like we could have scaled a lot faster than we have, but our retention rate is 95%, and we don't want to go too fast and then sacrifice quality. Biggest mistake we've made that could have cost us early on was hiring too fast beyond our runway. We were slippy enough to bring in all the revenue we needed and not have to make any tough calls. But we saw the writing on the wall before I think a lot of companies did recently and stopped doing that. Omar was kind of very influential, my co-founder, in that scenario, because I like to go really fast and Omar keeps us grounded in the present. And he was like, well, before we think about hiring this next person or that next person, we need to make sure we've got enough runway in the bank to make sure that everyone's getting paid, even if we don't get paid this month. So that was a large challenge for us. Speaking of podcasts, we also acquired a podcast way too soon. So my friend Marco Cerner ran a podcast called Sales Life that had about 2,500 listeners. And we acquired it on a deal where Marcos would have got some equity in the business if it had been successful. That didn't happen. So, it's not materialized that way. But a lot of kind of effort and thinking in our first month of launching the business went into that, and it was just way too much, way too soon, and it fell flat on its ass. So that was definitely, I would say we're fortunate enough not to have made mistakes that have cost us massively at this point in time, but there's certainly things we've learned loads from. That's a great question. I have ADHD and dyslexia, and I didn't know that until I knew I had dyslexia. I was diagnosed with that, but I didn't know I had ADHD until a couple of years ago. And the combination of those two things, basically what they mean is someone with dyslexia, their brain pylons, instead of being really short and close together, they're out there. So if you're doing a written or a simple task, it will take 3 times as much brain power to do that task and probably take, a lot longer. But the advantage to that is when there's something more complex, you would use half or all of your brain to figure it out, whereas someone without dyslexia may only use a very small portion of their brain. And what that opens is lateral thinking and thinking outside the box and, ideas that other people with no neurodiversity may not have. And it's the same with ADHD. ADHD reduces your prefrontal cortex. So when you get drunk, your prefrontal cortex reduces. And there's been a study at, I think, a university in Canada where professors were getting drunk with their students and producing phenomenal results. So I think the combination of those two things basically means I've always been a bit outside of the track. I've been academic, I've been a bit of a problem child and kind of rejected and told I was stupid and not very good at a lot of things. But in actuality, quite clever, able to figure things out, self-starter, wildly passionate, but not really in control of that passion. Yeah, I'm trying to answer your question in a succinct way, but it went on a bit of a tangent.
It's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we would do differently. I'm just trying to reflect on what they were. I did a post about it not too long ago, so I'm going to cheat and go and read that. I think the main things we would do differently are the micro things, right? And they're really hard to recall because there's 100 of them. One doesn't seem more important than the other. So I think the main lesson from that is we were really smart with data. So we've A/B tested everything the whole way. And I think if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have known the mistakes we made. That's the thing that saved us from those mistakes becoming big mistakes. No one, including myself or Omar, has had an opinion that we've trusted more than the data. And that's been really important, I think. So I'm going to shout out my friend George Suarez, who you should have on here. He's a guy who relocated to the US. His parents did. I can't remember, I really should know this, but I can't remember if he was born in the US or moved over when he was a child. But George grew up with very little at all, and he's 25 years old. He has kind of definitely got the true American dream underdog story, and has just been battered and bruised by the system and gone on to found an amazing startup and build quite an influential team around him. And I'm betting big on George and OpenBox. So I'd say that was a cool
nice
story. Yeah.
Well, we'll receive him on the podcast for sure.
I think the biggest thing for me was having confidence to start. I didn't realize I could start a startup until I joined the fraudulent one. And I joined the fraudulent bootcamp. The CEO was a liar, didn't have any money in the bank, said he'd done it multiple times before, built a team around that person, became, in a way, the shadow CEO, and realized that I could be a founder, I could run a company, and that team around me became TrainYo. But that wouldn't have happened so quickly if I hadn't been approached by a fraud. So, yeah, I feel like I should have had that confidence to start with.
I think my tagline is going to be, I joined a fraudulent company and this was the best decision I could ever make.
It was.